Hey guys, it's Amy here. Thank you for joining me for Being Mindful in the Midst of Chaos web class. If you're here with me live today, I want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here with me. It is my intention that you will walk away with some extra tools in your toolbox to help you cope and deal with stress as life hands it out to you. So I know all of us, each one of us, we have a host of stresses that we deal with at home, at work, in our relationships, and yes, oftentimes in our own head with the thoughts that we think. So, this class is a place for you to consider new ways to handle that stress in a mentally healthy way with both mindfulness and self-care. So what does that mean? What is mindfulness and self-care? I'm sure you've probably heard both of these terms before, and you may or may not be completely familiar with them. So before we get started, let's just define them. Mindfulness is defined as the quality or state of being conscious or aware of something. It can also mean a mental state achieved by focusing your awareness on the present moment while calmly acknowledging and accepting your feelings, thoughts, and your bodily sensations. Self-care, the practice of taking action to preserve or improve your health. Also, another definition is the practice of taking an active role in protecting your own well-being and happiness, in particular during periods of stress, which is what we're here to talk about today. So when it comes to being aware and in control of your mental health, mindfulness and self-care, they go hand in hand. So before you start taking steps to control the way that your mind reacts to chaos and difficult situations, it's really important to learn how to be conscious of the chaos and the effects that it has on you. Then, with that knowledge, you can take measures to mend or redirect the way that you process your thoughts or your experiences to make sense of the world. So you can essentially redirect your cognitive process. Historically, as a society, we haven't been taught to give our mental health the attention that it deserves. And as a result, we've learned to sweep issues under the rug, grin and bear through toxic relationships, and overload our schedules because we're afraid to say no. So, making mental health a priority is as important as making your physical health a priority. Because what we're learning today, and the science shows, is that our thoughts change the chemicals that we produce, the hormones in our brain, and the signaling. So that can either So here's an example. For example, two people can get on a roller coaster. One person can absolutely love roller coaster rides. The other person hates them. So the first person is going to be full of endorphins and dopamine and all of the chemicals associated, the biochemicals associated with feeling good. Whereas the other person is not going to generate those chemicals. Their body's going to be pumped full of cortisol. It's going to be very stressful. And those chemicals are associated with negative processes in your body, such as blood sugar issues and gaining weight, especially around the midriff, which is also associated with chronic diseases. So you get where I'm going with this. This is why your mental health is as important as your physical health, as diet, exercise, and water. But let's just keep going on. Can go on about that. Let's talk about what we can do. So whether we're born into families with difficult people, or we find our way to them through our friendships, partners, or coworkers, or maybe we've been the difficult person, it's challenging to know how to best respond to someone who brings negativity, drama, and unhappiness ultimately into our lives. So, one of the first things that you need to do and that you can do is to realize that the behaviors that are being presented to you or reflected at you are not your fault. The way that others cope with their feelings is part of their mental health, and it's not a reflection of who you are. You cannot fix a problem that doesn't belong to you. So it's important to remember that. That's the first key. So, and that goes a long way to not taking it personally uh, when people are projecting negativity at you. Being able to disconnect yourself from an emotional response and really just knowing who you are, right? Instead. So, another thing to consider is how differently two people might react to breaking a drinking glass. Literally, one person might throw an absolute fit, screaming, cursing, maybe even breaking something else, while the other person might just calmly pick up the pieces and move on with their life, right? So which do you think? Like, we want more peace in our lives. Each of these, though, is a reflection of the person's mental well-being and their ability to cope with their own feelings. So, one of the most important aspects of being mindful in the midst of chaos is taking measures to eliminate as much of the chaos as possible. Oftentimes, the source of chaos in our lives and negativity comes from the people that we choose to surround ourselves with. Now, I do acknowledge that we can't control every interaction that we have. But when it comes to our regular interactions, it is definitely our job and responsibility to ourselves to develop firm and clear boundaries about what we will and won't tolerate. Whether it's a gossipy coworker, an overly critical family member, maybe you're in a toxic romantic relationship. Eliminating the interactions with the people who bring down your good energy leaves room for more positive energy to enter. So often, what this means is breaking up with our friends. Not all of our friendships are meant to last forever, and that's fine. While we shouldn't casually discard friendships over minor arguments or differences or inconveniences, we should grant ourselves the permission to move on from relationships that no longer nourish or support us. So, I want you to pay attention in your life, moving on from this presentation, to the way that you feel. If you feel exhausted just by the idea of hanging out with someone, just the idea of it, it's probably a good sign that you should move on or find different company to hang out with. Friends are hard to part ways with, but our family members are even harder. It's more difficult, right, with family. So I have a really good recommendation to set limits on the amount of time that you wish to spend interacting with toxic people. So first, yes, limit that amount of time that you interact with those people that are toxic in your life. But if it's your choice to include them and keep them in your lives, it's important to keep the conversation positive as you can, pleasant as possible, and focused on that person, the toxic person. And the reason why is by keeping the focus of conversations on them, you are purposely keeping yourself safe from any unwanted drama. And you can still maintain the relationship that way if that's what you want to do. And I do realize it's important sometimes to keep people in our lives, especially family. So we have a relationship with everyone that we've ever had an interaction with. Whether it just lasts a moment, a lifetime, or anything in between the two. Each relationships, we cross paths with each other. Just like today, we're here together and we're learning from one another. And since each of us, we're all on different paths, it's good to realize the people that we're walking alongside might just be for a little while. It might be for a longer time, We also might cross paths later on in life. A good friend of mine, actually, that happened. We worked together at one company. This was almost 15 years ago. And our paths eventually crossed in another company. And she worked in the legal department. I was in operations. But anyway, we still remain friends. So this has now become a lifetime uh, path for us. But it's important to understand throughout our lives, there are going to be a lot of people that we meet, love, and learn from. But ultimately, it's important to remember that we play a role in determining how long we actually walk along a certain path. So, another good thing, this one is difficult for many of us. Um, as a female, I can speak from a female perspective. It's in our nature to want to be helpful and caring. And so this is a big one for females. Any men in this can actually, uh, in my opinion and my sight, I feel like they have a better ability to learn how to say no and prioritize. But it's important in order to cut down on the chaos in our lives that we make a priority to keep our plate filled with the right amount of work and responsibilities that is healthy for us, for our mental health. So that means learning to sometimes say no, when and how to say no. And it you might feel guilty the first few times that you have to turn down people who ask for favors, but it does get easier with time. So important to remind yourself why you are saying no by focusing on what by saying no where your energy you're saving your time and energy for what's important to you. And if it feels comfortable for you at first, your people are not owed um, explanations for why you do things, but you might feel that you might feel not that it's a polite thing to do to offer them your reasons of why you're saying no. And you have to also keep in mind that you are saying yes to the things that you want to spend your time and energy on. We have a limited amount of it, and there's not enough to do everything. So it's really important to prioritize and know where your energy is going every day. And by doing that, it helps us stay calm and focused in a very chaotic world. Helps us take control of where our time and energy goes. So we've all sat through some very awkward and draining reactions. If you're like me, I probably have spent too much time, and that's why I'm talking about this now to you. Um, there's a line between being polite and saving yourself the stress of staying too long. And it can be a difficult line to draw. So a tip that I'd like to give you is that 5 minutes chatting with a person is polite. It's important to interact with the people who cross our paths. I honestly believe, it's my belief that people are your most valuable asset. It's important to spend time with the people in your path. 10 minutes is more than enough. But any longer than that, you have every right to excuse yourself. And even if you're having a really good conversation, if you have other priorities, you can take a note or give that person your email and have them email you so that you can continue the conversation in a time that's more convenient for you. And if you feel that you're in danger, this is a whole nother thing. If you're having a communication with someone and you feel like or if they're being a racist, misogynistic, or obscene, you can simply just say, "Excuse me, I've got to go," and walk away. You have every right to do that. And I want to circle back on the previous slide about learning to say no. Also, if you're the type of person that people come to you and they want your opinion and your help and they look to you for guidance. Another thing that one of the coaches that I follow and has shared in one of his books that I have found extremely helpful is by giving that person your email and saying, "Hey, this is important to me because I can see that this is important to you. Here's my email address. Send me this request in an email so that I can have time to be thoughtful, and give you the answer that I think is the best answer if you really want my advice. And that's a really polite way to put the ball in their court to follow up with you. And then this gives you the time to really be helpful in a very thoughtful manner when you have time, when the time is right for you, so that you're not necessarily saying no. Um, that's just another tip that I'd like to throw in there. Okay, so now that we've covered all the ways to eliminate the excessive external stress that we're presented with in our lives, the most common ones, I'd like to take a moment to just remind you guys that it's so important to surround yourself with people who support you. Those who love and support you, keep them close. Now, for many of us, and I've been here many times because I've moved around a lot and I've relocated, sometimes it feels as though there is no one who fits into this category. And and if this is the case for you, consider reaching out to support groups for people who share the same interests as you, and that can be in person or virtually. In fact, I think you might even find the opportunity now to meet people virtually and make connections online and then in the future, you can meet those people in person. It really just depends right now also, like where you are in the country with COVID-19 and restrictions and social gatherings. But any positive connections that you can curate is shown to really help bring peace to your mind, and people with those loving supportive relationships in your life, like where you share this love and support of each other, whether it's a friend, a lover, a family member, a partner. um, these people tend to live longer and be happier and live more fulfilling lives. We talked about that in last week's seminar. That's one of my favorite Harvard studies that they've been doing for over 75 years that has taught us that, actually, on human adult development. Okay, so now that we're done talking about other people, let's focus on us and our space. So, if you've ever watched a home makeover show, you know how much physical space impacts our mental well being. And from a cluttered bedroom to a poorly lit office space, or for me, more recently, it was a kitchen that in my apartment that just was, it was draining my energy. So I had it painted. But it the spaces that we spend our time in directly impacts our psychological health. And while I knew this, most recently I had this experience where I literally hired a painter. I invested a few $100s, a couple $100, actually was reimbursed for the paint supply. So it didn't cost me a lot out of my pocket to repaint the kitchen. And if you live in an apartment, your landlord might deduct it from your rent like mine did. But anyway, just what I noticed was literally when that kitchen, I've been living here for, like 8 months. And once I had the kitchen painted, like this whole like weight lifted off of me. And I was like, wow, that was really draining my energy. The fact that I was not happy in this kitchen. So, but also a thing that I've got 3 tips though. If you don't want to invest money, these don't cost anything. You can, to make a space feel better, you can ditch the clutter, declutter, add more light. That might cost some money with the lighting. Light bulbs don't cost a lot, because that was another thing I did in my kitchen, was simply replace the light bulbs in the lighting fixture. That made a huge difference with the paint job. And plants. Adopt a plant. All of these things really can bring up your energy. All right, this is another one of mine. On my refrigerator, I've said this in another one of my the Science Behind Happiness webinar, I do believe. But on my refrigerator, I have the little letters, and I have grateful spelled out. So while you're in the decluttering stage, why don't you think about bringing in some colors or pictures or quotes, anything that brings you a little bit of joy when you look at it. And for me, I invested in a rug that I've always wanted. I don't know why I waited so long to do it. I put the rug down. Every morning I step out of my bed. It feels like I'm stepping on clouds, and literally it brings me so much joy every single day. Just that softness and the way that it's a really nice start to my day. I like these signs here in this picture. That's why I use that. Welcome home, happy place. If you're at a loss for where to start, go on Pinterest. Start a Pinterest collection, or find some old magazines or new magazines, and cut out pictures of the things that catch your eye or that you like. You can go through a fun furniture store for inspiration. Go to IKEA if it's open where you live. IKEA is a really fun place to hang out. You can actually like lounge in the furniture, but it's really good for inspiration. Okay, another one of my favorite ways to curate positivity is to just spread it. Exude the energy that you want to experience. Cultivate it. Really take the time out of your day to notice something nice about someone else, or do something kind for someone. Give them a compliment, a coworker or friend. Just smile at a stranger in the grocery store, or walking on a walking path. Generate positivity and then spread it. All right, this is a big one, guys. Check how you think about others. So, do you find yourself being judgmental towards others? This is so huge. I see it all the time, especially on social media. People judging people. We are judging people. We do it. It's in our nature. So it really takes conscious practice to redirect this. So I have some tips. Next time you catch yourself throwing a little shade towards someone or a situation, you know what I'm talking about. We've all been there. Judging others. Stop yourself. Just pause. Stop. And then shift your thoughts. Like, make a conscious effort. Try to think something positive about that person or situation, rather than always judging. And also, the next time that you start to judge someone or something, like, think about all the times that people have judged you and how that made you feel, right? Give other people the same mercy and grace that you want people to give to you. Now, I have an interesting quote that I'd like to read to you. It's from a psychology book with a really long title. The title of the psychology text is The Application of Acceptance and Commitment Therapy to Problem Anger in Cognitive and Behavioral Practice. Okay, the quote. We make the assumption that everyone sees life the way we do. We assume that others think the way we think, feel the way we feel, judge the way we judge, and abuse the way that we abuse. This is the biggest assumption that humans make. And this is why we have a fear of being ourselves around others. Because we think everyone else will judge us, victimize us, abuse us, and blame us as we do ourselves. So even before others have a chance to reject us, we've already rejected ourselves. And that is the way that the human mind works. I want you to think about that one. So piggybacking off that quote, we are our own worst critics. And after decades of bullying ourselves, our mental health takes a toll. So the next time that you catch yourself putting yourself down, thinking destructive thoughts, talking down to yourself, I want you to stop yourself when you're in a destructive thought or putting yourself down, and shift that to thinking about a few things that you're grateful for in your life, right? So gratitude has been shown to shift our mental state into one that is more positive, with a more positive outlook. So after you've acknowledged some of the things that you're grateful for, and you've shifted your mindset to a more positive state, then return to yourself and acknowledge something that you like about yourself. You might have to dig deep a little, especially if you have a long-standing habit of putting yourself down. And this is why it's even more important to stop yourself when you do that. Appreciate the things you're grateful for in life, which helps shift that mind state. And then just pick one thing that you like about yourself and tell yourself thank you for that. And then just watch. It will get easier as you continue to do that. So, using your breath as a tool. People have been doing this forever. And it works. It works. Using your breath as a tool. So, while there's a lot of different things that we can use to start curating a world around us that brings us positivity and pushes the negativity away, stress does tend to still creep in. It creeps in on us. Because it's part of the human experience. It's how we grow. It's part of the growth process. Honestly, if there was no stress, like, it's part of the physical body. That's how we adapt. That's how we get stronger, right? Stress, when I'm a personal trainer as well, like, you have to create stress for your body to adapt and become stronger. And the same thing with our life situations. So really, acknowledging when we catch ourselves in a negative mindset or feeling stress or anxiety, stop, pause, and bring yourself to your breath. Begin to slow your breath down. Maybe even try to mimic the sound of waves. If you've ever been to yoga, that's called ujjayi breathing, where you constrict your throat a little bit. I don't know if you can hear me do that, but it's sort of like you constrict your throat just a little bit to mimic the sound of waves through your breath, and slow in, a slow and steady breath in, pause, and then exhale. So you can do the 4-4-4-4 breathing exercise as well. It kind of brings you present. And that is taking a 4-second breath in. You pause for 4 seconds and then breathe out for 4 seconds. And you do that 4 times. And that's just something that you can do when you catch yourself being anxious. Let's do it right now. All right, ready? Guys, get comfortable. Sit up straight, and let's do this. Breathe in for 4 seconds. Pause for 4 seconds. And exhale for 4 seconds. Right, again. In. Pause. Out. Again, in, pause, and out. And just remember that 4 count just needs to be even. Even on an even count in, an even pause, and an even out 4. And then as you might do that, maybe each count gets a little bit slower. Yeah, and also I just want you to realize again, while you're doing that breathing, just remember, stress provides growth. Stress strengthens us. So it's really slowing down, acknowledging the positive of a situation that's going to provide that growth. When we can see the positive being created and the opportunity in situations rather than what is taking away from us. Like, what is this bringing into my life? Is this an opportunity to connect with someone, or seeing life as more opportunistic rather than restrictive is a good shift to make in your life. Okay, so yoga's quickly become one of my favorite exercises. I'm currently getting certified as a yoga teacher. Exercise is not always, but in the last, I guess, since 2008, it started becoming a really big part of my life. So, about 12 years now. It's really great for the body, but if you really want to take it to a next level, you can connect your mind and body through yoga. And it's really something that everyone should try. And I realize it might not work for you. Um, but because yoga focuses so heavily on the breath and the movements, it actually turns the entire practice into a kind of moving meditation, which is really nice because and it's proven to combat stress. But what I love about yoga, the personal trainer side of me, is that it builds your strength and flexibility. So it really is like the triple crown of exercises. You've got your mind body connection, but you're getting stronger, creating stress when you're in the poses and squats and the lunges, and it builds on your flexibility at the same time, because flexibility is not just about being bendy. True flexibility is coupled with strength, and that's why yoga is just such a wonderful exercise. But again, like I said, I realize yoga is not for everyone, and that's totally okay. So find something that serves you as an outlet that you can focus your mind on, that brings you present, and you can turn to when you're feeling stressed. So I have a guy painting here, so it could be painting, and or it could be cooking. Two of my favorite, painting and cooking. Some people love to craft, or the coloring books that we've seen. The adult coloring books are great. Your pet, petting your pet, getting a pet, a cat or a dog, or starting a garden, or the house plants. I mentioned that before. It not only brightens up the space and provides oxygen, oxygenates your air. It's really nice to kind of take care of the plants. It's relaxing, but you know, taking the time in your day to bring your mind away from anxiety is really what it's all about when I'm talking about here as an outlet, and bringing you to the present moment. And that is what mindfulness is all about. Just being present. So these activities, cooking, crafting, painting, coloring, petting a cat, gardening, houseplants, these help bring you to the present moment. So mindfulness is not always about meditating. And so with that in hand, I'd also like to say that it doesn't necessarily have to be something calming, quote unquote. In fact, I find mountain biking and trail running a really great way to focus my mind on the present moment. Because if I'm not completely present, if I'm not completely present while I'm out there, then I could really get hurt. So I have to be completely present to make sure that I'm safe when I'm out there. And it's one of my favorite activities, the two of my favorite activities. So it's really up to you. So some good places to start. If you don't have anything that you know of, try something new. Think about things that you might lose complete track of time doing because you get so immersed into that. And then do more of it. And again, like I said, if you don't have something that you can come up with offhand, like what have you always been interested in? Like what hobby? Pick one and try it, Have fun with it. All right. So again, mindfulness is not about ignoring your emotions. It's important, and we're here to learn ways to cope with our stress. But the goal is not to distract ourselves from the stress. In fact, it's better to release our thoughts, worries, and anxieties and find ways to do that. So you can try writing your thoughts in a journal, because getting them out of your mind and onto paper is shown to really just release the hold that those thoughts might have on you and help you gain some new perspective. But I'd also like to mention here that if you actually find it yourself struggling to maintain control of your emotions, or self-sabotaging with destructive habits or behaviors, then it's in your interest to connect with a mental health professional. And right now, every county health website has resources available for those who are having a difficult time dealing with the stress brought on by the big life changes due to COVID-19 that we're dealing with right now. And if you have health insurance through your work, Many insurance companies have these sister wellness partners that they partnered up with that actually offer these services free of charge. It's part of your wellness package in your workplace. So a lot of people don't even realize that's part of their package, and these resources are available to them. All right, so this is another one. Speaking of journaling, I journal every day and I gratitude journal. I do both. So these are one of my best ways, one of my favorite ways that helps me train my brain to think more positively. My gratitude every single morning, every morning, and sometimes when I go to bed as well. Pick a time that works for you and keep a gratitude journal, whether it's in the morning when you get up or at the end of the day. I keep the journal beside my bed. What gratitude has been shown, it rewires our brain. So we are more likely to focus on the positive than the negatives, right? We're training our brain to do that. We're looking for the positives and we're writing about the positives. And in effect, that is how you train, right? Uh, and it's important to realize that we're not here to put our head in the sand, become ignorant of danger or potential threats. Like, that's not it at all. Um, but by doing this, we open ourselves up to more of the good by learning to see the good around us. And that helps keep us calm and centered. It gets us out of the fight or flight response, right? With the stress hormones. It puts us into our rest and digest response and in an overall better mental state for making decisions. All right, so as we wrap up uh, this class today, I have saved the most important piece of advice for last, and that is to dedicate time to learn how to love yourself. Sometimes the best way to practice self love is by learning how to enjoy your own company. So, depending on where you are in the country right now and what the social restrictions are, you can take yourself out to a movie or dinner. In New York, that's not possible, so you can cook yourself. You can cook yourself. Go grocery shopping. Cook yourself a nice dinner. Like, treat yourself to whatever you consider like luxurious for dinner, and watch a movie. Take yourself out on a date. And if you have the means, take yourself on a solo vacation or a weekend getaway, or maybe just a day trip to an attraction or a park that you've been meaning to get to, or something that you find interesting, a waterfall. Like, take yourself out on a date. Try something new that you've always wanted to try, because I can guarantee you, once you learn how to love and cherish yourself and know your own worth and appreciate yourself, everything else tends to just start falling into place in your life. So I really hope that you guys have found some tips helpful today that you can take and put into action right away in your life. If you are live, I'll put this in the chat box, our resources now. If you are watching this, the resources are listed in the description of this video that I've used to put this together for you today. I am so thankful for your time in joining me. It might be the end of our class, but it really is just the beginning of your journey toward a more positive, mindful life. And this is, again, one of my favorite subjects. So if you have any questions, concerns, or would like any additional information about any of the topics that I've discussed today, like, don't hesitate to reach out to me in email at amy@amycatherineevans.com. I welcome your email. Look forward to it. In fact, it's my pleasure when I get an email from someone in my message, in my email, looking for support or a question. I really love that. It makes my day. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And remember, our life is shaped by our mind, for we become what we think. So thank you again, and I'll see you next week. Again, Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. All right. Thank you again. Have a great day, and talk to you soon.